What do you think?
Well, you know what I think. Presumably you've seen the movie, and the movie says quite clearly that his death was a coup d'etat. Still not agreed upon because various eyewitnesses differ in their accounts of it. There's no question that it is a full-out attack on the Warren Commission because I don't believe it, and I think it was a lie. I think it was a lie put over on the American public that Oswald did it alone. We've had 28 years of bullshit from the government and from the media. Is it really a covert, a shadow government that runs America? Not only did they possibly kill Kennedy, but they killed Robert Kennedy, they killed Martin Luther King. I've always said that there are two conspiracies. There was a small conspiracy, it could involve 5 to 10 people, maybe 11, 12, to kill the president. There is a second conspiracy here to cover it up.
JFK files. I wanted to point that out. The next video I want to get into is an interview with Oliver Stone. He is the director. I don't know if he wrote the movie. I know he directed the movie JFK, which is based off of a book, and he was very, very captivated by this book, as you're going to see. He's going to talk about it, but that movie gave me a whole different perspective, gave me a whole different understanding, and gave me, man, it just really, really made me more interested in what happened with JFK. So let's take a quick look here at the interview with Oliver Stone.
What do you think?
Well, you know what I think. Presumably you've seen the movie, and the movie says quite clearly that his death was a coup d'etat. Still not agreed upon because various eyewitnesses differ in their accounts of it. There's no question that it is a full-out attack on the Warren Commission because I don't believe it, and I think it was a lie. I think it was a lie put over on the American public that Oswald did it alone. We've had 28 years of bullshit from the government and from the media. Is it really a covert, a shadow government that runs America? Not only did they possibly kill Kennedy, but they killed Robert Kennedy, they killed Martin Luther King. I've always said that there are two conspiracies. There was a small conspiracy, it could involve 5 to 10 people, maybe 11, 12, to kill the president. There is a second conspiracy here to cover it up.
Oliver Stone, can I start by asking you why you wanted to make JFK?
Well, I thought, first of all, it was a hell of a thriller. I read the book by Garrison called On the Trail of the Assassins, and I said to myself, even if 50%, 20% of this is true, this is an outrageous story. It had never been reviewed in America. It was a totally ignored book. It was underground press. I read it. I met with Jim in New Orleans, and he struck me immediately as an articulate and dignified man who in his late 60s, had returned and written a second book about this case that had haunted his life. Very few people do that when they're in their 60s unless they really firmly believe and have conviction. Secondly, the subject matter itself is probably the most important subject matter I've dealt with. It goes to the heart of the American dilemma. It's a battle for the soul of America in a sense, because was Kennedy what his critics say he was, an unimportant president, charismatic, but basically a bump on the log that was removed, and then Lyndon Johnson carried out his policies? Or, as Jim Garrison suggests in his book, was his death motivated by his winding down of the Cold War? Was he a threat to a significant threat to the American establishment? Was he changing things with Khrushchev, with Russia, with Cuba, with Vietnam, and was his death really a political murder?
What do you think?
Well, you know what I think. Presumably you've seen the movie, and the movie says quite clearly that his death was a coup d'etat.
You said at the start of the answer that if 20% of the book was correct, which made me wonder.
So I don't know if you've seen the movie JFK. I highly recommend it, especially if this is something that piques your interest. So Oliver Stone believes that this was this here couldn't possibly be done and carried out by one person. This had to be a collective. This had to be a group of people that put this together, and the multiple shooters. And I've watched so many interviews, even the original coroners. I don't know if that was their title, but the people that were doing the autopsy, I should say, they started to do the autopsy in Texas. What I did not know, and I just discovered this here over the last couple of days, that they would not allow these gentlemen to continue to do the autopsy in Texas. They brought him to, after he got shot, of course, they brought him to the hospital quite naturally in Texas. You have the people coming and doing the autopsy. I think it was two gentlemen. And the one gentleman was saying that the shot in the neck of President Kennedy was from the front, not the back, as the Warren report states, that the shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, shot him from the back. But if you see the video, you just take a look at the video when the bullet hit President in the head, his head snaps back and it explodes in the front. So he got shot twice. He got shot in the neck and he got shot in the side of his head. You look at that video, there's no way he was shot from behind. Quite possibly the governor that was in the seat in front of President Kennedy, he possibly got shot by a shooter from behind because he got shot in his back. That's the theory, the grassy knoll theory, right? That there was a shooter in the front and a shooter in the back. But JFK, he was shot from the front. So common sense thinking people are like, well, the government is giving us this false report that makes absolutely no sense. I mean, if you got eyes and, you know, you're a common sense thinker, like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. The magic bullet theory, it just sounds like garbage. I mean, it's impossible what you guys are trying to make us believe. So when you get these types of reports and they're trying to sell it to the American people, you know, you're like, wait a minute, what in the hell is going on here that you guys can't just tell the truth of what's happening here? Because the truth, man, the truth is probably extremely diabolical, man. I think there's a lot of things going on here, but they don't want to really tell you that, do they? They don't really want us to know, it seems like. So let's continue.
Whether you were doubting it yourself.
Well, let me say this, that I ultimately don't know. I don't know, and I've never described the movie as the truth. The movie I've described as really as a hypothesis. It is based on some facts. I go as far as I can with the facts that we have. Beyond that, I'm into the area of speculation. I've described the movie in maybe hyperbolic terms as a counter myth to the myth of the Warren Commission. Bear in mind that I consider the Warren Commission is also based on facts plus speculation. The magic bullet theory is pure speculation, as is many things in the Warren Commission. And a lot of the facts in the case are still not agreed upon because various eyewitnesses differ in their accounts of it. To present an overarching paradigm, a counter myth. There's no question that it is a full-out attack on the Warren Commission, because I don't believe it, and I think it was a lie. I think it was a lie put over on the American public that Oswald did it alone. The more I've read, the more I've researched, the more people I've talked to, the more I believe this. So you can question my tactics, but you know, when we've had 28 years of bullshit from the government and from the media, and when you're attacking the 28 years of bullshit, you better come at it with, you know, a pretty fierce attack of your own if you're going to get people's attention. If you're going to make them sit up and say, you can't come at this half-heartedly, you've really got to, let me liken it to a bit like being a VC in enemy territory, Viet Cong. I mean, I'm fighting an enemy that has been entrenched and established and has heavy artillery on its side. So I have to use surprise. I have to use, in some cases, the tactics of a guerrilla to make an impression. went beyond that. I wanted to get into the movie. I want to put you into the skin of events. I want you to be in Dealey Plaza in 1963. I want you to be in the mood, the atmosphere. I want you to smell it, hear it, feel it. I want you to be in the autopsy room with Kennedy. Do you remember that old TV program, You Are There? I want to put people into it so that they can understand, or at least have a sense of what happened or what may have happened. And I guess you can criticize me for that, but I mean, apart from putting a prescription drug label on every scene at the bottom of and saying this is conjecture and this is fact, which would have been a distancing effect, I just don't know how else to have done it.
Why does it?
There's a lot of conjecture. We don't have all the information, so we take the information that we have and we come up with our own conclusion. And the information that's been given to us now, it raises more questions. Now there's even more questions. So if you haven't seen this movie, JFK, I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was good. But let's see here. Oh, what did I want to say? Oh, you know what? Never mind. I thought I had it pulled up, but I don't have the information pulled up. So let's see. Hold on a second. Yeah, I don't have it pulled up. Sorry.
Matter to you so much?
Why does it matter to me so much? Because I suppose fundamentally, beyond it being a repugnant crime, I suppose it goes to the heart of what democracy is. At the end of the day, it posits the question is, do we really have a democracy in our country? Is government accountable to the people? Is it really a covert, a shadow government that runs America? Not only did they possibly kill Kennedy, but they killed Robert Kennedy, they killed Martin Luther King, they prosecuted a war in Vietnam in which they lied to the people and never told them what was going on. We have a chief executive who, in liaison with the CIA, conspired to bomb a neutral country, Laos and Cambodia, without telling the American people, that's a conspiracy. We have a chief executive who sat at the heart of a criminal conspiracy in our country, and as you know, escaped impeachment by resigning one step ahead. We had another conspiracy in our country to sell arms to an enemy country in the casual hope of their releasing some hostages. Another conspiracy to provide weapons and cash to Nicaraguan Contras against the laws of the United States. Another possible conspiracy to stall the release of hostages in Iran in order to get another president elected. We've had 5 or 6 conspiracies.
These are all major allegations, major accusations on your part.
Well, no, these are facts. On 5 of these 6 conspiracies are facts.
Why make movies? Why not make documentaries? Because obviously you do care about the truth.
Well, because we don't have the facts on the Kennedy killing. All the facts are not in. And part of the reason is because the damn government never gave the facts to the people. When the Warren Commission was formed, and I implied that it was a cover-up, the CIA and the FBI gave what they wanted to the Warren Commission, and they had a hell of a lot of more documentation. They had 300,000 pages on Oswald. They never gave anything to the Warren Commission of any significance. Allen Dulles, who Jack Kennedy had fired as the head of the CIA, and Jack Kennedy vowed, as you know, to splinter the CIA into 10,000 pieces. They appointed Allen Dulles to investigate John Kennedy's death. That's like asking the fox to investigate the chicken coop. It isn't fair.
Isn't that crazy? See, this is what this is why the conversation of JFK and the releasing of the files is important, because there's so much information. I mean, Oliver Stone is talking about 300,000 pages on one man alone. Just finding out the information that we're finding out, who conducted the investigations, and finding out that the CIA had been following Lee Harvey Oswald for 4 years. There's 4 years worth of documentation on this gentleman. It's mind blowing. there's so much information that has been withheld from us. And, that's why, there's conjecture, because we don't have all the information. So we have to come up with our own theories, on what happened, try to connect the dots ourselves. So I think it's important that they release these files, but I still question, what has been left out of the files, if anything, right? And what information is placed in there to maybe lead you down a different path, to mislead you. I don't know. I don't know. It just creates more questions.
So you cannot talk to me about as if there is any set or agreed upon a body of facts in the Kennedy killing. It is a mess, this case. It is a mess. And it is the right, in fact, it may well be the obligation of any artist to go back into this thing and reinterpret it. Because I don't think the history was written correctly.
You've been pretty forceful in your condemnation of the media at the time, and
I don't think it was written correctly either. I think it was meant to deceive us, to throw us off, because this whole thing, man, this whole thing with JFK, there's so many theories out there, and there's a lot of them that actually make a lot of sense. Like, okay, I can see motive here, and I can see motive here, and I can see motive here. It's like, okay, which one is it? Which one is it? Or are they all involved somehow? I don't know, man. I don't know, but I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating trying to get to the truth. And who knows? Maybe we'll never get to the truth, and we'll be having this conversation for generations and generations. I don't know. Maybe it was designed that way. But this situation with JFK, I know it's just sparked a lot of new interest, and I'm glad that people are interested in this. And if you haven't seen this movie by Oliver Stone, JFK, I highly recommend it for sure.
since. Do you think that's why they have now turned around and attacked the film?
No. My condemnation is a small part of it. The media basically blew the story in 1963. I'm talking about the American media. They accepted the cover story, which was put out on Friday afternoon, that Oswald did it alone. And I showed that in the movie with Donald Sutherland. They had the cover story right in place. It was the technique of black operations, the technique of covert operations. They had a studio biography of Oswald that was available on all the wires. You could have been in New Zealand, you could have been in Egypt, you could have been in England, South Africa. You got the same story on Friday afternoon. This was 4 or 5 hours before Oswald was charged with the killing of the president, but it was already starting to point to Oswald. And when Oswald was killed on Sunday by Jack Ruby, the New York Times headline said, "President's assassin is shot." It didn't say president's alleged assassin is shot, which is what it should have said. Oswald never had representation. And the facts about Oswald were buried from the American public. We now know that the CIA had a heavy, increasingly thick 201 file on Oswald from 1960 on. But when Richard Helms testified to the commission, he denied that the CIA had any interest at all in Lee Harvey Oswald.
It's almost as if they were setting this man up to be the patsy. I mean, think about what Oliver Stone is saying. On Friday, the whole world is getting this story about Lee Harvey Oswald, and by Sunday, he's assassinated, and they already label him the president's the guy that assassinated JFK. So they're already planting these seeds in your head. They're already setting the groundwork. And they wanted something that was like, okay, nice and packaged up and cleaned, and here you go. This is for you to consume and believe. So it's unbelievable, man. This whole situation is crazy, and it creates more questions.
Why do you think the media have been so aggressive towards you and the film?
Because, number one, it's their territory. They blew the story in 1963. They never asked, the American press never asked why. What is a possible motive for his death? They never. When Indira Gandhi gets blown up and killed in India, the press asks them, what are the opposing political forces? The American press never asked that question. They went right away with the Oswald did it alone. Oswald as communist, although we know that Oswald liked Jack Kennedy, in fact, adored him.
Could it be the media is just weaponized and the media is controlled by the government? Like, listen, we are not going to talk about this. And what he's saying here is, the media never questioned it. Why didn't the media question it? Because maybe they were told, hey, settle down, go sit down. This is the story. This is the story we're running with. You don't question us. I mean, think about the media now. I mean, it probably was way worse back then in the 60s.
They accepted that Oswald was a communist. Jim Garrison brought out in New Orleans that Oswald, as a communist, was hanging out with anti-communists. The same thing in Dallas.
Do you feel I suppose what I'm driving at is, do you feel that the media campaign against you has been orchestrated anyway? I mean, and do you feel part of a conspiracy theory?
It could be. I mean, it's one. Look, they've called me everything from a paranoid to a lunatic and everything. So this is ridiculous. But I've always said that there are two conspiracies. There was a small conspiracy. It could involve 5 to 10 people, maybe 11, 12, to kill the president. There is a second conspiracy here to cover it up. Now, because I said that doesn't mean that the New York Times conspired to kill John Kennedy. But something happened. Something happened. There was an embarrassment, let's say. Maybe Lyndon Johnson said to Earl Warren when he forced him under the commission, he said, this is serious. Possibly Castro did it. There could be a war here involving the loss of 40 million lives. He used that word, 40 million lives, to persuade Earl Warren to take this job. There seemed to be this sort of strange and embarrassing desire to cover it up quickly, not to have a major international embarrassment, to pin the thing on Oswald and to move on with our lives.
So if you think about what Oliver Stone is saying, so he does his research, he creates a great movie, and what he comes up with in JFK, I'm just like, wow, this looks and sounds legitimate. I mean, it is a theory that should be definitely considered. If you are a JFK enthusiast or a person that is, I mean, maybe new to this or you have some type of interest in it, definitely watch this movie. But keep in mind, that is part of their playbook to discredit you. They'll sit up here and call you all kind of names and discredit you and try to get the public to agree with them to make it seem like, oh, well, he is a conspiracy theorist and there's no validity to what he is saying. This is their playbook. Discredit the person, flood information out there. I mean, even talk about things that is not even related to the subject, right? They'll say all kind of stuff. It's, man, no wonder people have been still, after all this time, fascinated with this, because no one truly knows for sure how it all went down.
Of course, our moving on with our lives implied going to Vietnam. And what's been lost in all this is that Kennedy has been sort of summarily dismissed as a Cold War president whose policies in Vietnam were quickly carried out by Lyndon Johnson. This is not the case. Arthur Schlesinger Jr. has written about this, and there's a new book coming out, which is a fascinating, groundbreaking work by John Newman that goes in depth into documented details about John Kennedy's plans to withdraw from Vietnam in 1965. Isn't
there a problem, though, in blaming Vietnam on the roots of it, on the assassination of Kennedy, that you let other people off the hook? No, of course. That is also, I've been misrepresented on it. I point to the motive as being the winding down of the Cold War. On a much larger scale, I'm saying what the movie says is that Kennedy was reaching a sort of a form of early détente with Khrushchev.
25 years ahead of Gorbachev. There's plenty of evidence of this, not only the American University speech, but the deals that he made with Khrushchev in 1962 over the Cuban Missile Crisis, the signing of the Nuclear Peace Treaty, which was a groundbreaking thing at that time, the installation of the hotline, the backdoor negotiation with Castro, and a very strict, no combat troop policy by President Kennedy, not only in Vietnam, but in Cuba and in Laos, and several times in Vietnam in 1961, 62, and 63.
The allegation is that within the film is that the conspiracy is enormous. It's an inverted pyramid, effectively. Doesn't the fact that it is that make it less likely? I mean, it's so huge that people would have leaked.
There again, the film has been misrepresented, because if you look at the film closely, when the Donald Sutherland character is talking to Costner, he says, it's in the air. There's no face on it. Nothing's on paper. Everyone has a plausible deniability. And then we cut to a shot of one man picking up a telephone, the implication being that one high-level official, be it an Alan Dulles, let's say, just for the sake of, makes one call to a middle-level official. The middle-level official is the guy who picks up the phone. He's told, we're going in the south, we're going in the fall. That person puts into play the mechanics, the hitmen, who do the job. It's a cellular organization. In other words, if I'm a shooter, I don't even know who hired me. I don't even know your name. I may not even know the name of the other shooter. It is done in sort of like a terrorist organization in Beirut or in Algiers, very cellular. Ultimately, in the conspiracy to kill the president, it could involve as little as 6 or 7 men, 8 men, 9 men, who don't even know their names, because nothing is on paper. Nothing can be proved. The cover-up, however, is a whole other story, which involves, I think, a larger group of people. But that does not need to say that those people involved in the cover-up knew that Kennedy had been killed by a conspiracy. Maybe they sense it, but they don't really know the facts. There's therefore a sort of I call it a silent assent. For example, the FBI is mentioned in the film, but only in terms of the cover-up. But my critics have always used that and say, well, Stone throws in everything. It's the kitchen sink, too. He has the FBI is in on the killing. Lyndon Johnson is in on the killing. No, the film only said that Lyndon Johnson was in on a cover-up, that he knew something had happened and he was trying to cover it up.
I'm not sure if you guys have seen the video when Lyndon Johnson was being sworn in. I think he was on Air Force One. Jackie Kennedy was sitting next to him. She still had the blood on her dress. And I forget the gentleman that winked at him. And it was almost as if, you looked at Lyndon Johnson's face, man. It was almost as if he was happy. He was happy that this got carried out. I don't know, man. I've seen plenty of people point that out. I thought it was interesting. There's a subsequent conversation with him and Jackie Kennedy on the phone. I want to say it was maybe a week or two after the assassination of her husband, JFK. Even that phone call seems suspect, man. Like, wow, this seems weird, man, to have a conversation like this, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just know that I'm intrigued. I'm definitely interested, fascinated. I've been fascinated by this whole situation for a long time, and in no way, shape, or form am I an expert at it, but it piques my interest. And whenever this thing with JFK rolls around, it seems like every so many years it rolls around and people get really engaged and interested in it again. I'm no different. I'm the same way. I'm like, yeah, man. What it does is it recalibrates, and I'm like, you know what? I do remember that. I do remember this. And then you get new pieces of information. Like, wait a minute, you add that new piece in. It's just like, oh man, it brings up even more questions. So